Next, from Springfield, Republican and Democrat legislators introduce House Bill 6258, a pension reform bill they say is designed to lower pension costs and provide retirement security for state workers. This runs about 30 minutes.
So, good morning, everybody. I'm State Representative Elaine Nekritz. It is really a special honor to be standing with this group of bold leaders this morning to introduce House Bill 6258, an innovative, comprehensive bill on state pension reform. We have 21 co-sponsors on the bill, which we're very excited about. Well, we have a number of other folks who are standing with us today, and because they support generally the bill, not every detail in it, so we have a lot of, as you can see, a lot of legislative support here, and there's a number of folks that are not standing with us at the moment. The leaders standing here are indeed bold. There's a reason it's taken a long time to get to yes on this issue, precisely because it is hard. But we are also very pragmatic. We know that we cannot sustain the current trajectory of the pension payments, and a solution is needed. The solution we're putting forth today in House Bill 6258 involves sacrifice by everyone involved. But there's a reward for that sacrifice. The pensions will be both sustainable and affordable. There's a stronger guarantee that the state will make its payments going forward, and there are additional revenues going into the funding. We think this is a very solid proposal and a meaningful step forward. However, it will continue to be negotiated and refined over the next month in the balance of this 97th General Assembly. We're introducing it at this time so that we can understand what the actuarial numbers behind this bill are and have time for feedback and refinements. With a month to go in this General Assembly, we welcome all input. But this is no time to sit on the sidelines or believe that delay will make this any easier, or let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We are all troubled by something in this bill, but the greater good must be our goal. We have to put aside our personal needs, our personal fears, and our personal goals, and focus on strengthening Illinois for a better future for everyone. And with that, I will turn it over to Representative Kelly Cassidy.
Good morning. I am Representative Kelly Cassidy, and I represent the far north side of Chicago and a piece of Evanston. In my short time in the House, I've seen a handful of pension reform proposals. Usually they are described in sterile dollars and cents terms. I've also spent time in my district talking to the people who would be affected by those proposals, and nothing introduced up to this point seems to address the real people behind those numbers. What began as a series of conversations between similarly concerned members from diverse backgrounds has resulted in a proposal that isn't perfect, but represents a new start, inclusive of previously unheard perspectives that just might lead to a solution. I'm hopeful that we are headed in the right direction now. Through all of this, I have carried with me a conversation with a constituent I have named Zoe. She originally came to my office seeking assistance finding affordable housing, and I didn't initially understand that she was on a state pension. After many of this series of reports on pension reform, she came back to my office and wept as she asked what she was going to do when we cut her $800 a month pension and how she was going to get by on even less. For her, completely eliminating the COLA or offering a false choice between health care and a COLA is no choice at all. When the average public employee pension is $32,000, we cannot approach the question of pension reform as if everyone has a six-figure pension. Every proposal we've seen up to this point has had a one-size-fits-all, top-down approach to a problem that cannot possibly be solved that simply. Today, we are beginning a conversation that includes people that are looking out for Zoe's interests. This coalition of rank-and-file members includes many like me who have been strong allies of organized labor, but are also concerned about the painful cuts we've made to state services. All of us agree that we cannot sit by and hope for a better answer to come along. The reality of our fiscal situation demands that we step up to the plate with new ideas. We came together out of a desire to find a better solution that protects those at the lower end of the income scale and those who are closer to retirement, for whom earlier proposals would have been devastating, while preserving the promise of secure retirement for all into the future. We know that we cannot move forward with a budget that will preserve critical services unless we relieve the pressure our pension obligations put on all sectors of our budget. Ultimately, I'm here today fighting for the Zoes in this equation, to ensure that the promise to them is kept and to take away the fear that this protracted process has put on all of them. Thank you. I want to now pass it over to my colleague, Representative Will Davis.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I, too, want to make sure that I acknowledge the courage of the legislators that are standing here with me today. I don't have a Zoe story to tell you, but what I can share with you is the impact that these challenges have had on thousands of school children throughout the entire state of Illinois. I stand here as chair of the Elementary and Secondary Education Appropriations Committee, and I'll give you just two numbers: 162 million, 209 million. Those represent the cuts that have been made out of the education budget for the last 2 fiscal years. It's clear that the pressure that's being put on the legislature by continuing to deal with this pension issue is impacting schools throughout the entire state of Illinois. Without the revenue, we are continuing to make these kinds of cuts in the education budget. And unfortunately, if we don't try to fix this problem in the very immediate future, we will continue to see schools throughout the entire state of Illinois suffer the fate because, unfortunately, there just aren't the resources available to provide the adequate education necessary for these young people throughout the entire state. And very simply put, if we truly believe that the children are indeed our future, then we must act now on this situation. I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Representative David Harris.
Good morning. Thank you very much. My name is David Harris. I represent the 66th District, which is a suburban Cook County district. There is absolutely no question but that the pension issue is the most serious public policy issue facing the state of Illinois. It is not a Democrat issue. It is not a Republican issue. And we can disagree on how we got here, but we have to solve it. There are a handful of a handful of Republicans in this group this morning, but I can tell you that there are others on my side of the aisle who feel very strongly that this bill moves us in the right direction. We are where we are, and we have to solve the problem. I think there is a frustration, a genuine frustration on the part of many members of the legislature that there has not been meaningful negotiation and meaningful progress on this most serious issue until now. There's a lot to like in House Bill 6258. There's a lot to dislike in House Bill 6258. But it takes a creative approach, I think, to a couple of key issues. It takes a creative approach to the question of the compounded automatic increase, to the issue of age increases, and to the issue of contribution increases. It is creative in its approach. All of us standing here were sent here to solve the problems of our state. We want to take action on the most serious problem facing our state before it ruins us financially. We need to move the discussion forward in a positive way, and I believe that House Bill 6258 moves it forward in a positive way. There will be additions, modifications, deletions, changes, but we've got to move forward. If it can bring us closer to a solution, if it can generate what I refer to as a critical mass of support, then we have started something meaningful here today. And I simply encourage all of those who have been talking about pension reform at leadership levels with all the significant groups to get behind 6258 and use it as a platform to solve the pension problem that faces our state. Thank you, and I'll be followed by Representative Biss.
Thank you, Representative Harris and colleagues. We are here today to solve a problem. This is a large group of legislators, some who have been working on this problem for many years, some who are newer to the problem, but all of whom agree that we have to solve it and solve it soon for the taxpayers of Illinois, for the service recipients of Illinois, and for the public employees of Illinois. And while the discussion so far and the process in the last few years has been frustrating, we are gratified that there have been good ideas out there. There have been some good ideas in the bills that have been considered. There have been good ideas proposed to us by external stakeholders, and there have been many good ideas that came from individual legislators and have not yet been considered before today. Our approach today is to stitch together what we believe are the best of the different ideas from the disparate corners on this issue, stitch together what we view as a platform for a comprehensive solution to this problem. So what's the platform? There are three different components. First of all, we make a series of changes to the Tier 1 set of benefits. We do so without creating a complex set of options and without including retiree health care in the mix. And we do that understanding that it's a tough thing and a difficult thing, but also proud that we've constructed those changes in a way that we believe shelters those who rely most upon the pensions and also protects those who are closest to retirement and have the least amount of time left to make adjustments. So first of all, the annual increase is delayed until the age of 67 or 5 years after retirement, whichever comes first. And thereafter, it's limited to the first $25,000 of the pension, or $20,000 for those who also receive Social Security. The retirement age is increased, not at all for anyone who's over 45, but by 1 year for someone between the ages of 40 and 45, by 3 years for someone between the ages of 35 and 40, and by 5 years for individuals under the age of 35. The employee contribution is increased by 2 percentage points, phased in over 2 years. And salary subject to pension will be capped at the Social Security cap or the individual's current salary, whichever is greater. It is our view, based upon significant experience with a number of different pension reform proposals, that that is a framework that ought to enable very, very significant savings for the state of Illinois. The second set of changes regards Tier 2 employees, those hired on or after January 1st, 2011. For Tier 2 employees in the teacher's retirement system and the state university retirement system, we put in place for all new employees and on an optional basis for current Tier 2 employees, a cash balance plan. This is a plan that preserves the minimum defined benefit of the current structure, but also incorporates significant advantages of a defined contribution plan, substantially mitigated risk for the state, as well as portability for the employees in a modern labor market. We additionally, on Tier 2, make a change for the Tier 2 employees in the General Assembly retirement system, who we believe benefited from an unfair loophole in the initial bill. Their annual increase will now match the annual increases of all other public employees in Tier 2. Second of all, we put in place a 30-year plan to pay down all of the pension debt to achieve 100% funding in 30 years. Third of all, we put in place a mechanism which, when the 3 series of pension obligation bonds currently outstanding are paid down, the revenues that had been going to pay those down will instead be directed to the Pension Stabilization Fund to pay down the pension debt. And finally, the going forward normal cost of pension benefits will be gradually shifted to the employers that set the salary and determine the benefits. Now, on this last point, let's be clear. This is a tough, knotty issue. I understand that because I work here in the Capitol, but I also understand that because I represent an affluent suburban district for whom this is a really tough thing to swallow. And I want to say 2 things on this point. First of all, I am convinced there is nobody up here, not one person, who thinks that the exact version of the cost shift in this bill is what needs to be the final plan. We are here to introduce a framework, and we are here to negotiate on that. And I think that we are all convinced, on both sides of the aisle up here, that we can achieve a mutually agreeable solution on this point. Secondly, I would say that in House Bill 6258, as currently filed, there are critical aspects that I would argue substantially mitigate the challenges presented to school districts by the cost shift. First of all, it's very slow. It's 0.5% of payroll per year, the slowest of any proposal that we've seen so far. Second of all, the benefit changes will result in substantial reduction of the normal cost. So the total normal cost being shifted is less than has been contemplated before. We would be surprised if it were even as much as 6% of payroll. Third of all, House Bill 6258 contains ironclad language producing a firewall between the accrued liability to date and going forward benefits. The liability accrued so far is the responsibility of the state. It is our responsibility. We assume that responsibility, and it will not be transferred elsewhere. And lastly, during the course of the summer, many people said to us, including some suburban and downstate administrators, they said, we understand that it makes sense to align the setting of salary with the payment of the pension benefit that is determined by that salary. But we also think that if you're going to do that, it makes sense to give us some control over what that benefit is. And we agree. And that's why the cash balance plan for all new employees gives the local district substantial jurisdiction over the generosity and therefore the cost of the plan. Thus, for the first time in Illinois history, placing in one entity's hands the responsibility for funding the plan, the responsibility for setting the salary that determines the benefit, and the responsibility for determining the overall generosity of the plan. So that's the framework. We appreciate the strong interest in this. We look forward, given the month that we know will take place between now and any vote happening on this legislation, to robust discussion among this group, with other legislators, with stakeholders on the outside, and with all of you. And with that, Representative Nekritz is going to lead the question period.
Can I just add one thing? When you have a half an hour, Representative Biss will be happy to fill you in on the details of the cash balance plan.
Representative, on the $25,000 that the COLA would be limited to, is that going to be cumulative, or you get it on the first $25,000 and never again? In other words, is it $25,000, you get a 3% bump, then you get another increase on the 25 plus the 3? Or is it just
It's a 3% compounded COLA. The $25,000 would be set in statute.
Representative, how is this constitutional? That's going to be the first thing that the unions come at you with.
It will. I think that we tried to set forth, we looked at a lot of the opinions that are out there with regard to constitutionality, and I don't think any of us standing here today, and anyone can know in advance what the 7 Supreme Court justices will do. So, all any of us can do is put our best foot forward to make sure that we give them something to say, yes, we think this is constitutional. I think that it's very clear. I think all of us would agree that without some changes, Illinois will be sent into fiscal oblivion, and we have to avoid that. So what we do is we say we're not changing any benefits that have already been earned. I mean, the prime example of that, I think, is the question of the salary that's subject to the pension. We lock that in as of the date the bill becomes effective. And then the other thing is the funding guarantee. I mean, that's something that the state employees, teachers, and so forth don't enjoy right now, clearly. And so we think by locking that in, we make this constitutional.
But Representative, with the 3% COLA, though, you're dealing with a diminishment, aren't you? I mean, if you're taking away somebody's COLA, isn't that a diminishment?
So as opposed to the model that was in earlier versions where there was an individual consideration, we think there is consideration for the class of individuals, that being the funding guarantee and the fact that benefits are not changed up until the date that's earned. You don't get the COLA till you're retired, and so we think that is a going forward piece of the benefit.
And how about the age issue? Hasn't that also been determined to be fairly unconstitutional, to change the age you can retire?
I'm not aware that the Supreme Court has actually spoken to that directly. And again, I don't think it's been done in conjunction with these other items that make the system viable, where it's currently not at all, which is why we're all here.
Representative, the cost has been going up for $1 billion a year. Does this level off payments?
We're here today to lay out a framework. This is not a bill that has gone through a robust actuarial analysis, and I don't think there's anybody here who's interested in enacting a bill into law before that happens. There are a lot of people in this group, certainly Representative Nekritz among them, who have seen a lot of pension reform proposals come and go, who have seen a lot of pension proposals carefully actuarially scored, and we feel very, very confident, based upon our collective experience, that this will have extremely significant savings. As you heard a number of different people say earlier, our primary goal is to put in place a reformed set of benefits and a sustainable system so that we can both fund those benefits appropriately and also continue to fund the other critical services that state government supports and provides. And our view is that this framework will be a mechanism to restrain the growth of pension costs to make that possible.
Do you know, though, if is it your goal to, like, instead of $1 billion, try to hold it down to $100 million a year or something like that, or to level it off?
Our goal is to make sure that we can fund what we need to fund. And we know that the portion of revenue that goes to pay down our pension debt right now is pretty close to as much as we can absorb. So we would hope that this platform would enable us to put in place a system where that growth over time would not enormously exceed natural revenue growth.
Do you think that you'll still have to have the income tax in place to keep pension system viable?
I'm sure there's a lot of people on the stage with different views on that matter, but I think everyone on the stage knows. I think everyone on this stage knows that with or without the income tax increase, this needs to get done. And Representative Gable had comments as well, I think.
I was just going to add that even if we do this pension change, there is still not enough money to really fund the things we need to fund in this state. That we are one of the lowest states in funding education. We're one of the lowest states in funding services for people with disabilities.
Elaine, how does this pass the Senate without their model of consideration? They've been very, at least the Senate Democrats have been very stuck on that particular model.
Our view is that everybody in the Capitol is eager to find a solution. We've been in discussion with the Senate President. We're reaching out to the Senate Minority Leader. We have the expectation that a proposal that is comprehensive, that is reasonable in its benefit impact and achieves the needed savings will get a fair hearing in the Senate, and we look forward to working to make that happen.
Have you been guaranteed that you'll be able to hear this before January 9th in the House?
This has been, I want to reiterate, this has been a very organic, member-driven process. We have not been in negotiations in discussions with leadership. Certainly they're informed of what's going on. So we haven't gotten to that point yet. We would like to make sure, we'd like to have the bill actuarially analyzed and continue to take discussion. But I would hope that any comprehensive reform that we can show has wide support from all corners of the state. I can't imagine that wouldn't be called.
You'd be looking for another bill then, because it's a first.
I think we would have to. Yeah.
As you said, this bill is in many ways more comprehensive than previous ones, including those that you, Representative Nekritz, have introduced yourself. What if something like this doesn't go forward and it goes back to one of those previous versions? Are those not comprehensive enough? Do those get as far as Illinois needs?
Well, as the only person in the House who's voted for, I think, every piece of allegedly comprehensive reform that's come before it, I think, and I won't speak for my colleagues here, but I think that whatever is comprehensive enough to solve the solution and can get to 60 votes is what we all ought to get behind.
Representative Harris, can I ask you as a Republican?
Dave, but I think Karen may.
Just on that topic, Representative Karen May, and I joined the Pension Committee to try to solve this overarching problem that we've got. So I feel like, as a lame duck, I'm Goldilocks. The first proposal maybe was too hard, the second one too soft. I think this one might be just right.
Representative Harris, as a Republican, do you think that your party leaders, Radonio and Cross, are out of step on the cost shift?
I'm certainly not going to speak for them. During the course of the campaign, I came out and said, I can support the cost shift because I talked to my superintendents. I said, if we phase this in over a long enough period of time, if we talk about only the normal costs going forward, can you live with that? They said yes. I'm reflecting my district. I'm not reflecting my leadership in any way here. The objective is to get a bill that, what I, again, refer to as critical mass, that 60 folks or more can say, we want to solve the problem, and this is how we solve the problem. Personally, I don't believe that the cost shift in and of itself is the total stumbling block. I mean, I think we have addressed it, as Representative Biss has said, addressed it in this bill in a real, meaningful, positive way that the districts can indeed live with. Maybe it's changed somehow, maybe it's put in a different bill, I don't know, but I think that the Republicans, in the end, we can work something out that makes it doable.
And is there anybody among you here today who would not vote in favor of this bill if it were presented exactly as you have it here?
Standing up here, yeah, there are a couple of folks that if you look at House Bill 6258, the people that have committed to yes are on the co-sponsorship list. But as I said, and I said in my opening remarks, there are a couple who are standing here because they support it in concept, but there are parts that are still troubling.
Has anyone talked with the governor's office? Have they had any hand in these putting together the bill?
They have not, again, the folks you see standing before you here today are the folks that put the bill together. And we're very proud of that fact, actually. So the governor's office has received some of the same information that you have received on it.
Hey, Elaine, wouldn't it be maybe a cleaner approach if you sought out to change the Constitution first, and then you would eliminate the question of, potential legal challenges? Is that even possible, do you think?
Anytime you go before the electorate and are looking for a 60% approval, I'm not sure you could describe that as a clean process. So I think, I don't know how many of us voted for the 3/5 constitutional thing up here, but if that can't pass, I'm not sure that I don't know what the outcome would be of that. So I don't think we have time to wait for 2, 3, 4 years for that to happen. We have a problem in fiscal year. We had a problem in fiscal 12, 13. We're facing one in 14. We have to do something now.
What do you think the chances are that you will get this through here before June?
This has more momentum. I mean, there's more people standing here today than we've had for any pension bill that's been proposed in the past, and it is a broad coalition, a diverse coalition, and something like this needs momentum. I think we've created it here.
When do you expect to get some numbers on savings, actuarial numbers? When do you expect to have that?
We've asked the systems, we've given them, that they're going to start that process today. So, and we have a month to do that. I would think, some of the systems will be able to do it fit more quickly than others, but I think it's a matter of weeks.
In the text, just one quick thing here. You said it would be longer. How long are you anticipating the gradual length of that to be?
Well, the cost shift is put in the bill at a rate, so it moves over at 0.5% of payroll per year. So the question for how long that'll take is the question of how big it is, and of course the school districts would like it to be as fast as possible because that would mean it would be smaller. As I said earlier, we would be surprised if it was as much as 6% of payroll under this current proposal.
Do you know how that equates to the number that was being thrown around, 900 million or whatever?
900 million is the total normal cost today, which is, I believe, for the teachers' retirement system, which I believe is pretty close to 9% of payroll. So you're looking at reducing it by a third at least, probably more than that.
Is the idea to shift the entire?
Doug, it's 10:30 is session time, so I'm going to put an end to that, but I think some of us will be glad to stick around, because I think as we're getting more into the weeds on this, that we can answer those more specific questions, but I want to allow everybody to go to the floor that needs to do that. So thank you all very much for coming. We're very excited.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.